I interviewed Emma Redfoot on nuclear power and its possible implications in Montana and across the U.S. And here's the interview. But just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. My name's Emma Redfoot. I'm a nuclear engineer by like that's the degree I have, and my undergrad's environmental studies. And so, what I work for a startup that's working on very small, advanced nuclear power plant design and implementation. And I help with the regulatory team as well as I do a lot of the work on siting and environmental considerations. Like I'm
Awesome.
somebody who advocates for all clean energy
Mhm.
sources. We need everything. Like anything that's clean is good. And so I'm an all of the above kind of like advocate in terms of energy policy. But I like why I decided to pursue nuclear and why I became a nuclear engineer. Like my undergrad is environmental studies. It was not obvious that I was going to go into nuclear. It was when I started doing a lot of research on energy. Really realized that the one proven source of power that's been able to scale to meet the energy demand of a large industrial country reliably with clean energy. The only one that's been able to do that historically is nuclear. Hydro's been able to do it to a certain extent, but that's only in certain areas that have large hydro resources. So nuclear, like was the option that's proven to be scalable, clean, and able to power, um, you know, people's lives at the level that of energy that they want to consume. I mean, it's definitely something that comes up again and again anymore. It's kind of an interesting point because it's something that, of course, people used to say about solar and wind, and it's partially like social driven, movements that make it so that they are faster to implement. There's nothing inherent about nuclear power that takes a long time or is expensive. This country was one of the only countries in the world that nuclear power went up significantly in price, and it was because people actively worked to shut it down. All that being said, and so you can see like countries like South Korea, the United Arab Emirates, they implemented a full regulatory scheme and built multiple nuclear reactors and put them online in 10 years. And we're not talking a couple hundred megawatts. We're talking 1,000 megawatts
Yeah.
electric. And so, yeah, it's a lot faster to build a couple of like a field of solar
Mhm.
panels, but it's not reliable. And it's not nearly the scale that we're talking about. Like, I love the idea of replacing coal with clean power sources.
Yeah.
Nuclear power sources. One thing I like about the movement of like replacing coal is, of course, you can take advantage of transmission. Taking advantage of that infrastructure that's there is really cool. The thing that excites me, the stuff that excites me the most about Colstrip, though, is that like it was the movement to look into replacing it with nuclear was motivated by people in Colstrip, by like workers there that are
Yeah.
interested in having it there, and that's really cool. And it also shows like nuclear power jobs are really good jobs, and a lot of them are pretty similar, like to what the skill sets that are already in Colstrip. And so at the end of the day, all these power sources are heating water to turn a turbine, and that's
Right.
true with coal, gas, solar thermal, nuclear. It's like they're all doing the same thing. And so it's got a lot of the same people that can keep those jobs in those areas. So I find all those to be really like exciting. It's changed so much. Like even just this year, if you look at things like Montana, of course, had a couple pieces of legislation surrounding doing research into replacing coal strip and also like changing some of the laws around nuclear. West Virginia just passed some laws. Minnesota's looking at passing some laws. It's like Alaska is just passing some things. Like everywhere, like all these places in the country are reevaluating legislation surrounding
Right.
nuclear. There's you know the things that are holding it back technically right now is just that we don't build nuclear fuel in the United States,
Right.
really.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big, you know, thing that's getting spun up. That being said, the Energy Act of 2020 put a lot of effort into trying to spin up making fuel, and my company Oklo. You look us up. We're actively pursuing and putting money into using spent nuclear fuel as fuel. So, 95% of what's we consider nuclear waste is actually reusable
Right.
fuel. So we're looking into we're actively pursuing using that as a fuel source. So that's a couple different things, but it's a combination of like public perception, which is changing, I think, policy, which falls in line with that, and the fact then those things drove nuclear to not have a huge customer, like there's not a like the supply chain didn't have a huge
Mhm.
customer base, and now that's picking up again. So um, I think nuclear is inevitable. In
Yeah.
reality, like we're gonna need to go that way. We need to have clean energy.
I think after doing a bit of research and talking to Emma, the thing that nuclear needs to become a mainstream source of energy is a better public image. Like she said, there is nothing inherently expensive and time consuming about nuclear. We need all types of energy to continue the energy consumption we have been accustomed to. She said after the interview that clean energy is a marathon, and without the use of nuclear, it would be like trying to run the marathon on our hands. I asked Emma at the end of the video if she had anything to leave with the class, and she said that she would be happy to discuss anything about nuclear and address any questions or concerns from any of my classmates.